Sarah Martinez had always known the military would test her in ways she couldn't imagine. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she watched her father return from deployment after deployment, his eyes carrying stories he never shared at the dinner table. The uniform hanging in his closet seemed to hold secrets, and Sarah found herself drawn to those mysteries like a moth to flame. When she turned 18, against her mother's tearful protests, Sarah enlisted in the Army. Basic training at Fort Benning was everything the recruiters had warned her about, and more. The drill sergeants screamed until their voices cracked, pushed recruits until they collapsed, and broke down every civilian habit they'd ever formed. Sarah thrived in this chaos. While other recruits struggled with the physical demands, she found herself finishing obstacle courses ahead of soldiers twice her size. Her marksmanship scores caught attention immediately. During rifle qualification, Sarah's shots grouped so tightly that her instructor had to examine the targets twice to believe the results. Other recruits gathered around her station, whispering about the quiet girl from Texas who could put 5 rounds through the same hole at 300 yards. Sarah never boasted about her shooting. She'd learned from her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who taught her that talking about killing was for people who'd never done it. After basic training, Sarah received orders for advanced infantry training. The instructors at Fort Benning had recommended her for specialized combat roles, noting her exceptional performance under stress and her natural leadership abilities. Sarah accepted every challenge they threw at her. Night navigation exercises through swamps filled with alligators, urban warfare simulations in abandoned buildings, and survival training that left recruits eating insects and drinking their own purified urine. During one particularly brutal training exercise, Sarah's squad was tasked with clearing a mock village filled with pop-up targets and hidden obstacles. The scenario was designed to simulate the chaos of real combat, with smoke grenades, loud explosions, and instructors firing blank rounds to create confusion. Sarah moved through the exercise with calculated precision, identifying threats and eliminating targets while coordinating her team's movements through hand signals and whispered commands. The exercise ended with Sarah's team achieving the fastest completion time recorded that year. Her instructor, a grizzled sergeant with 3 combat deployments, pulled her aside afterward. He looked into her eyes for a long moment before speaking. "Martinez, I've seen a lot of soldiers come through here. Most of them are playing war games. You're different. You understand that this isn't a game." Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She could feel something changing inside her, a hardening that both excited and frightened her. Graduation from advanced infantry training brought new challenges. Sarah was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The base buzzed with activity as units prepared for deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. Sarah threw herself into additional training, volunteering for every specialized course available. She completed airborne school, learning to jump from aircraft at night with full combat gear. She attended urban warfare training, studying building clearing techniques and close-quarters combat. Most importantly, she enrolled in sniper school. Sniper training pushed Sarah beyond anything she'd experienced. The physical requirements were demanding enough, crawling through mud for hours while carrying heavy equipment, remaining motionless in uncomfortable positions for entire days, and navigating terrain that seemed designed to break ankles and tear equipment. But the mental demands were even greater. Instructors taught her to calculate wind speed and direction, to account for bullet drop over extreme distances, and to read the landscape like a topographical map. The psychological preparation was perhaps the most challenging aspect. Sarah learned to control her breathing, to slow her heart rate at will, and to enter a meditative state that allowed her to focus completely on a target hundreds of yards away. She studied human anatomy, learning exactly where to place shots for maximum effectiveness. The instructors didn't sugarcoat the reality of what they were training her to do. They were creating professional killers, soldiers who could eliminate enemy threats from distances that made them invisible and untouchable. Sarah excelled in every aspect of sniper training. Her natural marksmanship ability, combined with her disciplined approach to learning, made her one of the top graduates in her class. She could hit targets at ranges that impressed even her instructors, and she demonstrated the patience and mental toughness required for extended surveillance missions. When graduation day arrived, Sarah received her sniper badge with quiet pride, knowing she had earned a place among the Army's elite shooters. Assignment to a combat unit followed quickly. Sarah joined Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment. The company was scheduled to deploy to Afghanistan within 6 months, and Sarah threw herself into pre-deployment training with characteristic intensity. She learned to work with spotters, practiced calling in artillery and air support, and studied intelligence reports about enemy tactics and terrain in the Afghan theater. The months leading up to deployment were filled with endless briefings and training exercises. Sarah learned about Afghan culture and customs, studied maps of potential operating areas, and received instruction on rules of engagement and escalation of force procedures. The training was comprehensive, but Sarah understood that no amount of preparation could fully ready her for the reality of combat. During this period, Sarah caught the attention of Colonel James Harrison, the battalion commander. Harrison was old-school Army, a veteran of multiple combat deployments who believed that soldiers earned respect through performance, not politics. He had little patience for what he saw as the military's increasing emphasis on political correctness and social engineering. When he noticed Sarah's exceptional performance in training exercises, he initially assumed she was another example of lowered standards designed to increase female participation in combat roles. Harrison first encountered Sarah during a battalion-wide marksmanship competition. Company commanders had submitted their best shooters to compete for recognition and bragging rights. Sarah competed alongside dozens of male soldiers, many of whom had years of combat experience. The competition involved multiple shooting positions, various target distances, and time limits designed to simulate combat stress. Sarah dominated the competition from the first round. Her shots were precise and consistent, regardless of position or distance. She moved between shooting stations with efficiency and confidence, never appearing rushed or stressed despite the pressure. Other competitors began watching her performance with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Some of the older sergeants exchanged knowing glances, recognizing exceptional skill when they saw it. When the final scores were tallied, Sarah had not only won the competition but had set new battalion records in several categories. Colonel Harrison observed the award ceremony with growing irritation. He had expected one of his veteran soldiers to claim victory, not a young female private who looked like she should be attending college classes instead of preparing for combat deployment. After the ceremony, Harrison cornered Sarah near the barracks. His voice carried the authority of decades of military service as he questioned her about her background and training. Sarah answered respectfully but confidently, providing details about her civilian shooting experience and military training without boasting or making excuses. Harrison found himself frustrated by her composure and professionalism, having hoped to find some weakness or flaw he could exploit. Over the following weeks, Harrison watched Sarah carefully during training exercises and daily operations. He assigned her additional duties and responsibilities, looking for signs that she couldn't handle the pressure. Sarah met every challenge without complaint, often exceeding expectations and earning praise from her immediate supervisors. Harrison's frustration grew as he realized that Sarah was not only competent, but exceptional. The tension between Harrison and Sarah became apparent to other soldiers in the battalion. Some whispered about the colonel's obvious bias and unfair treatment of their fellow soldier. Others supported Harrison's skepticism, believing that women had no place in combat roles regardless of their apparent abilities. Sarah ignored the gossip and politics, focusing entirely on her job and preparation for deployment. 3 months before deployment, Sarah participated in a major training exercise designed to simulate combat operations in Afghanistan. The exercise involved multiple companies operating across several square miles of realistic terrain, complete with mock villages, hidden threats, and role-playing civilians. Sarah was assigned as the primary sniper for her company, responsible for providing overwatch and long-range support during various missions. The exercise began at dawn with a company-sized air assault on a suspected enemy compound. Sarah and her spotter inserted via helicopter onto a ridgeline overlooking the target area, carrying enough equipment and ammunition to sustain operations for several days. Their hide site offered excellent visibility of the compound and surrounding approaches, making them invaluable for intelligence gathering and fire support. As the assault unfolded below, Sarah methodically engaged designated targets with simulated ammunition. Her shots were precise and timely, eliminating threats before they could engage friendly forces. Exercise controllers praised her performance, noting that her interventions had prevented multiple simulated casualties among the assaulting troops. Sarah's spotter, a seasoned corporal with 2 combat deployments, was impressed by her calm professionalism under pressure. Colonel Harrison monitored the exercise from the Tactical Operations Center, watching Sarah's performance through drone feeds and communication intercepts. Despite his personal reservations, he couldn't deny that she was performing exceptionally well. Her target engagement decisions were sound, her communication was clear and professional, and her overall contribution to the mission's success was undeniable. The exercise continued for 5 days, with Sarah participating in multiple scenarios ranging from urban warfare to rural patrol operations. She consistently demonstrated superior marksmanship, tactical awareness, and leadership abilities. Other soldiers in her unit began seeking her advice on shooting techniques and battlefield tactics, recognizing her expertise despite her junior rank. On the final day of the exercise, Sarah's hide site came under simulated enemy attack. Exercise controllers had positioned role-playing enemies to assault her position, testing her ability to defend herself and continue providing support to friendly forces. Sarah and her spotter successfully repelled the attack while maintaining their primary mission, demonstrating the kind of multitasking ability that separated elite soldiers from average ones. The deployment to Afghanistan came faster than anyone expected. Intelligence reports indicated increased enemy activity in the Kunar province, and Sarah's battalion received orders to deploy 2 months ahead of schedule. The news created a whirlwind of activity as soldiers rushed to complete final preparations, update wills, and say goodbye to families. Sarah used her final leave to visit her parents in Texas. Her father, recognizing the look in her eyes that he remembered from his own deployments, offered quiet support without asking questions he knew she couldn't answer. Her mother cried during their last dinner together, sensing that her daughter was heading into something that would change her forever. Sarah promised to write regularly and stay safe, knowing that promises made before deployment often became impossible to keep. The flight to Afghanistan was long and uncomfortable, with soldiers cramped into transport aircraft designed for cargo rather than passenger comfort. Sarah spent the journey reviewing intelligence briefings and studying photographs of their assigned operational area. The terrain looked harsh and unforgiving, with steep mountains, deep valleys, and scattered villages that could hide enemy fighters or innocent civilians with equal ease. Forward Operating Base Chapman became Sarah's new home, a collection of tents, concrete barriers, and prefabricated buildings surrounded by razor wire and guard towers. The base hummed with constant activity as helicopters delivered supplies, armored vehicles departed on patrol, and soldiers prepared for missions that could last days or weeks. Sarah quickly adapted to the routine of combat operations, maintaining her equipment, studying intelligence reports, and waiting for her first mission assignment. The base housed soldiers from multiple units, creating a diverse community of combat veterans, first-time deployers, and support personnel. Sarah found herself assigned to a small tent with 3 other female soldiers, each bringing different skills and experiences to their shared living space. They quickly established routines for maintaining privacy and cleanliness in conditions that challenged both concepts daily. Colonel Harrison arrived at Chapman 2 weeks after Sarah's company, bringing his command staff and establishing battalion headquarters in a series of reinforced buildings near the base's center. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere, as soldiers adjusted their behavior to meet his exacting standards for military bearing and performance. Sarah continued her daily routines, avoiding unnecessary contact with the colonel while preparing for combat operations. Her first mission came 3 weeks after arrival. Intelligence sources had identified a Taliban commander operating from a village 30 miles northeast of the base. The mission required a company-sized force to conduct a dawn raid, searching for the commander and any intelligence materials he might possess. Sarah was assigned as the primary sniper, responsible for providing overwatch during the assault and securing potential escape routes. The mission began with a pre-dawn helicopter insertion onto a ridgeline overlooking the target village. Sarah and her spotter, Corporal Davies, established a hide site among rocky outcroppings that offered excellent visibility while concealing their presence from enemy observers. They carried enough water, food, and ammunition to sustain operations for 72 hours if extraction was delayed. As the assault force moved toward the village, Sarah scanned the surrounding terrain through her rifle scope, searching for enemy fighters or suspicious activity. The village appeared quiet in the early morning light, with smoke rising from cooking fires and a few civilians moving between buildings. Sarah noted potential sniper positions, escape routes, and areas where enemy fighters might establish defensive positions. The assault began at sunrise with soldiers surrounding the village and systematically searching each building. Sarah provided continuous overwatch, her rifle trained on likely threat areas while Davies monitored radio communications and observed through powerful binoculars. The mission proceeded smoothly until soldiers discovered a hidden weapons cache in the village mosque. The weapons discovery triggered immediate enemy response from surrounding hills. Taliban fighters who had been observing the raid opened fire with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades, attempting to pin down the assault force and prevent their withdrawal. Sarah immediately began engaging enemy positions, her rifle shots echoing across the valley as she eliminated threats one by one. Her first combat kill came without hesitation or ceremony. Sarah identified a Taliban fighter preparing to fire an RPG at the trapped assault force, calculated the range and wind conditions, and squeezed the trigger. The enemy fighter dropped instantly, his weapon falling and used to the ground. Sarah felt no emotion beyond professional satisfaction at a job completed correctly. The firefight continued for 2 hours as more enemy fighters arrived to reinforce their comrades. Sarah methodically engaged targets as they appeared, providing critical support to the assault force while they completed their search and prepared for extraction. Her accurate fire prevented several enemy attacks and allowed friendly forces to evacuate wounded soldiers safely. During the engagement, Sarah eliminated 7 confirmed enemy fighters and forced several others to abandon their positions. Her performance drew praise from the company commander and earned her recognition as one of the most effective soldiers in the operation. Davies, her spotter, was amazed by her calm professionalism under intense fire, noting that she never seemed stressed or excited despite the chaos surrounding them. The mission's success led to additional assignments for Sarah. Company commanders began requesting her specifically for operations requiring precision marksmanship or long-range reconnaissance. Sarah embraced these challenges, recognizing that combat experience was building her skills and confidence in ways that training never could. Over the following months, Sarah participated in dozens of operations throughout the province. She provided overwatch for village searches, eliminated enemy sentries during night raids, and conducted surveillance of suspected Taliban meeting sites. Each mission added to her experience and reputation among the soldiers in her battalion. Colonel Harrison watched Sarah's performance with growing frustration and grudging respect. He couldn't deny that she was effective, but her success challenged his fundamental beliefs about women in combat. Harrison had commanded soldiers for over 20 years, and his experience told him that combat was no place for females regardless of their apparent abilities. The tension between Harrison and Sarah reached a breaking point during a battalion formation 6 months into the deployment. Harrison was presenting awards for exceptional performance during recent operations, recognizing soldiers who had demonstrated courage and skill under enemy fire. Sarah's name appeared on the list for a commendation medal, recommended by her company commander for her outstanding performance as a sniper. As Sarah stepped forward to receive her award, Harrison noticed something that ignited his anger. She was wearing a combat infantry badge, indicating that she had served in active ground combat with an infantry unit. Harrison believed that women were not authorized to wear the badge regardless of their actual combat experience, viewing it as a symbol reserved exclusively for male infantry soldiers. After the ceremony, Harrison confronted Sarah in front of several other soldiers. His voice carried across the area as he demanded to know why she was wearing a badge she wasn't authorized to possess. Sarah responded calmly, explaining that her company commander had authorized the badge based on her combat service and meeting all required criteria. Harrison's face flushed red as he continued his verbal assault, questioning Sarah's integrity and suggesting that she was wearing the badge to gain undeserved recognition. Other soldiers stopped their activities to watch the confrontation, uncomfortable with the colonel's public humiliation of a respected member of their unit. Sarah maintained her composure throughout Harrison's tirade, responding only when directly asked questions and refusing to engage in an argument with her superior officer. Her calm professionalism in the face of unfair treatment impressed the watching soldiers and further inflamed Harrison's anger. The confrontation ended with Harrison ordering Sarah to remove the badge immediately and report to his office the following morning for further discussion. Sarah complied without argument, removing the badge and returning to her duties as if nothing had happened. Her reaction frustrated Harrison, who had expected her to become emotional or defensive. News of the confrontation spread quickly through the battalion, with soldiers taking sides based on their own beliefs about women in combat and their respect for Sarah's demonstrated abilities. Some supported Harrison's position, believing that maintaining traditional standards was more important than individual performance. Others defended Sarah, pointing to her proven effectiveness and professional behavior. The controversy reached higher command levels when Sarah's company commander filed a formal complaint about Harrison's treatment of his soldier. The complaint alleged that Harrison was displaying gender bias and creating a hostile work environment that could affect unit morale and mission effectiveness. The accusation triggered an investigation by the brigade commander's staff. During the investigation, dozens of soldiers provided testimony about Sarah's performance and Harrison's behavior toward her. The testimony painted a clear picture of exceptional performance by Sarah and inappropriate conduct by Harrison. Investigators also reviewed mission reports and performance evaluations, finding consistent evidence of Sarah's effectiveness in combat operations. While the investigation proceeded, Sarah continued her duties without acknowledging the controversy swirling around her. She participated in missions, maintained her equipment, and supported her fellow soldiers with the same professionalism she had always demonstrated. Her behavior during this difficult period earned additional respect from soldiers who watched her handle adversity with grace and dignity. The investigation concluded that Sarah had been properly authorized to wear the combat infantry badge and that Harrison's actions constituted inappropriate conduct toward a subordinate. The brigade commander issued a formal reprimand to Harrison and ordered him to attend sensitivity training regarding gender integration in combat units. Harrison's anger over the investigation's outcome was evident to everyone on the base. He avoided direct contact with Sarah but made his displeasure known through increased inspections of her unit and unreasonable demands for paperwork and administrative tasks. Sarah's company commander did his best to shield her from Harrison's harassment while documenting each incident for potential future action. The tension between Harrison and Sarah became a defining characteristic of the deployment, affecting morale throughout the battalion as soldiers watched their leadership engage in what appeared to be a personal vendetta. Many soldiers lost respect for Harrison's leadership, while Sarah's reputation continued to grow based on her consistent performance and professional behavior. 8 months into the deployment, intelligence sources reported increased Taliban activity near the Pakistan border. Enemy fighters were using mountain passes to transport weapons and personnel between the two countries, creating supply lines that sustained their operations throughout the region. Sarah's battalion received orders to establish observation posts along these infiltration routes and interdict enemy movements. The mission required small teams to operate independently in remote locations for extended periods. Sarah was assigned to lead a 4-person reconnaissance team tasked with monitoring a strategic mountain pass known to intelligence analysts as Route Falcon. The pass connected Taliban strongholds in Pakistan with operational areas inside Afghanistan, making it a critical target for interdiction efforts. Sarah's team included Corporal Davies as her spotter, Sergeant Williams as team leader and communications specialist, and Private Jackson as their medic and assistant observer. The 4 soldiers had worked together on previous operations, developing the trust and communication essential for successful small unit operations in hostile territory. Their insertion was planned for a moonless night to minimize detection by enemy observers. A special operations helicopter would deliver them to a landing zone 5 miles from their objective, requiring a challenging overland movement through mountainous terrain to reach their observation post. Sarah spent days studying satellite imagery and topographical maps, planning routes that would conceal their movement while providing access to effective firing positions. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, with the team unloading their equipment quickly and establishing security while the aircraft departed. Sarah led them through a carefully planned route that avoided known enemy positions and utilized natural terrain features for concealment. They moved slowly and deliberately, stopping frequently to listen for signs of enemy activity. Reaching their observation post required climbing nearly 2,000 feet through rocky terrain that challenged their physical conditioning and equipment carrying capacity. Each team member carried over 60 pounds of gear, including weapons, ammunition, communications equipment, food, and water for a planned 7-day operation. Sarah set a steady pace that conserved energy while maintaining their timeline for reaching the objective. The observation post was located on a ridge overlooking the mountain pass, offering excellent visibility of enemy movement while providing concealment and defensive positions. Sarah positioned her team to maximize their surveillance coverage while minimizing their signature to enemy observers. They established hide sites using natural rock formations and camouflage materials, creating positions that were virtually invisible from the pass below. For 3 days, the team observed constant enemy traffic through the pass. Taliban fighters moved in groups ranging from 5 to 20 personnel, carrying weapons, ammunition, and supplies that clearly originated in Pakistan. Sarah documented each group's composition, equipment, and movement patterns, building an intelligence picture that would support future operations. On the 4th day, Sarah's team observed a high-value target moving through the pass. Intelligence sources had identified Mullah Qasem as a senior Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks throughout the region. Satellite communications and intercepted radio transmissions had placed him in the area, but his exact location had remained unknown until Sarah spotted him through her rifle scope. Qasem was traveling with a security detail of 12 fighters, carrying sophisticated communications equipment and what appeared to be detailed maps of coalition bases in the region. Sarah recognized the intelligence value of capturing or eliminating the commander and his materials, but her team's orders specified surveillance only unless they observed imminent threats to coalition forces. Sarah made the difficult decision to engage the target despite her restrictive orders. Intelligence reports indicated that Qasem was planning a major attack on Forward Operating Base Chapman, potentially resulting in significant coalition casualties. She calculated that eliminating him was justified under rules of engagement that authorized action to prevent attacks on friendly forces. The shot was extremely challenging, requiring her to engage a moving target at nearly 800 yards while accounting for wind conditions and the steep angle of the mountainous terrain. Sarah spent several minutes preparing for the engagement, calculating environmental factors, and waiting for the optimal moment when Qasem would be clearly visible and stationary. When Qasem stopped to consult his maps, Sarah took the shot. Her bullet struck the Taliban commander center mass, killing him instantly and creating immediate confusion among his security detail. The enemy fighters scattered for cover, unsure of the sniper's location and unable to effectively return fire at such extreme range. Sarah's team observed the aftermath of the engagement, watching enemy fighters search frantically for their attackers while attempting to secure Qasem's body and equipment. The confusion continued for over an hour before Taliban reinforcements arrived and organized a systematic search of the surrounding area. Realizing that enemy forces would eventually discover their position, Sarah made the decision to relocate her team to alternate positions. They moved carefully through the mountains, using predetermined routes that offered concealment while maintaining surveillance of the pass. The movement was exhausting and dangerous, but it prevented their detection and capture. The Taliban response to Qasem's death was swift and violent. Enemy fighters flooded the area, establishing checkpoints and conducting aggressive patrols in an attempt to locate Sarah's team. Intelligence intercepts revealed that local Taliban commanders had offered substantial rewards for information leading to the sniper's capture or death. For 3 additional days, Sarah's team evaded enemy searches while continuing their surveillance mission. They observed dozens of Taliban fighters scouring the mountains, using techniques that demonstrated sophisticated training and equipment. The enemy's persistence and organization impressed Sarah, who recognized that they were facing skilled opponents rather than untrained militia fighters. Communication with battalion headquarters became increasingly difficult as Taliban forces attempted to jam radio frequencies and intercept coalition transmissions. Sarah's team was forced to limit their communications to brief, encrypted bursts that provided essential information while minimizing detection risks. The extraction was scheduled for the 7th night of the operation, with the same special operations helicopter returning to collect the team from their original insertion point. Sarah planned their movement to arrive at the landing zone with minimal exposure to enemy observation, but the Taliban's extensive presence in the area made the journey extremely dangerous. The team began their movement to the extraction point 2 hours before the scheduled pickup, moving slowly through terrain that Taliban forces had been searching intensively for days. They encountered enemy patrols twice during the movement, hiding in rocky outcroppings while armed fighters passed within yards of their positions. Reaching the landing zone required crossing an open area that offered no concealment from observation. Sarah waited until clouds obscured the moon before leading her team across the exposed ground, moving quickly but quietly toward their pickup point. They reached the landing zone with minutes to spare, establishing security positions while waiting for their helicopter. The extraction helicopter arrived precisely on schedule, landing quickly while Sarah's team loaded their equipment and prepared to depart. As the aircraft lifted off, Taliban forces opened fire from multiple positions around the landing zone, having detected the extraction and moved to intercept the departing helicopter. The helicopter pilots skillfully maneuvered through enemy fire, using terrain features and evasive maneuvers to avoid the machine gun rounds and rocket-propelled grenades directed at his aircraft. Sarah and her team provided suppressive fire through the helicopter's open doors, engaging enemy positions to reduce the volume of fire directed at their extraction aircraft. The flight back to forward operating base Chapman was tense but uneventful, with Sarah's team finally relaxing as they crossed into friendly airspace. The successful completion of their mission, despite the challenging circumstances and unexpected complications, represented a significant achievement for small unit operations in the theater. Upon their return to the base, Sarah's team was immediately debriefed by intelligence specialists interested in the detailed information they had collected during their surveillance mission. The intelligence proved valuable for planning future operations and understanding enemy tactics and capabilities in the region. Colonel Harrison was informed of the mission's success and Sarah's decision to engage Mullah Qasim despite her restrictive orders. Intelligence analysis confirmed that Qasim had been planning a complex attack on Chapman, potentially preventing significant coalition casualties through Sarah's actions. However, Harrison focused on her violation of orders rather than the mission's successful outcome. The confrontation between Harrison and Sarah over her unauthorized engagement occurred during a private meeting in his office. Harrison accused her of insubordination and reckless endangerment of her team, arguing that her actions had compromised the mission and placed soldiers at unnecessary risk. Sarah defended her decision by citing intelligence indicating imminent threats to coalition forces and rules of engagement that authorized preventive action. She provided detailed reasoning for her engagement decision, including the high value of the target and the difficulty of obtaining similar opportunities in the future. Harrison remained unconvinced by Sarah's arguments, viewing her actions as evidence of poor judgment and inability to follow orders. He prepared formal charges of insubordination and recommended that she be removed from combat operations pending disciplinary action. The charges would effectively end Sarah's deployment and potentially her military career. News of the charges against Sarah spread quickly through the battalion, creating controversy among soldiers who had witnessed her exceptional performance throughout the deployment. Many believed that Harrison was using the incident as an excuse to punish Sarah for embarrassing him during their previous confrontations. Sarah's company commander filed a strong letter supporting her actions and opposing the charges, citing her consistent professionalism and the successful outcomes of her combat operations. Several other officers and senior enlisted soldiers provided similar statements defending Sarah's character and performance. The charges against Sarah reached higher command levels, where senior officers reviewed the circumstances of her engagement and the intelligence value of eliminating Mullah. The review process revealed that Sarah's actions had indeed prevented a planned attack on Chapman, vindicate her decision to exceed her stated orders. However, before the charges could be resolved through the military justice system, events in the field would provide a dramatic demonstration of Sarah's value as a soldier and Harrison's poor judgment in attempting to punish her. 2 weeks after Sarah's controversial engagement of Mullah, intelligence sources reported a massive Taliban offensive planned against forward operating base Chapman. Intercepted communications revealed that enemy forces were massing in the mountains surrounding the base, preparing for a coordinated assault designed to overrun coalition defenses and capture or kill American soldiers. The intelligence was specific and credible, indicating that Taliban commanders had assembled over 300 fighters armed with heavy weapons, explosives, and sophisticated equipment. The planned attack was intended as retaliation for recent coalition successes, including the elimination of several high-value targets and the disruption of enemy supply lines. Colonel Harrison found himself facing the largest enemy threat of his deployment with reduced confidence in his battalion's capabilities. The pending charges against Sarah had created division among his soldiers, with many questioning his leadership and priorities. Harrison realized that he needed every available asset to defend Chapman successfully, including soldiers he personally disliked. The base defense plan required positioning snipers at strategic locations around Chapman's perimeter to engage enemy leaders and disrupt assault formations before they could reach coalition positions. Sarah was the most skilled marksman in the battalion, making her placement critical to the defense's success despite Harrison's personal animosity toward her. 3 days before the expected attack, Harrison reluctantly assigned Sarah to the most important sniper position overlooking the base's main approach route. The position offered excellent fields of fire but was also the most likely target for enemy counter-sniper efforts and direct assault. Harrison hoped that assigning Sarah to this dangerous position would either demonstrate her incompetence under extreme pressure or eliminate a source of embarrassment to his command. Sarah accepted the assignment without complaint, recognizing both its importance and its dangers. She spent 2 days preparing her position, coordinating with adjacent units, and studying intelligence reports about enemy tactics and capabilities. Her preparations were thorough and professional, impressing other soldiers who observed her work. The Taliban assault began at dawn on the predicted day, with enemy forces attacking Chapman from multiple directions simultaneously. Mortar rounds and rocket-propelled grenades struck coalition positions while machine gun fire swept the base's defensive perimeters. The intensity and coordination of the attack exceeded all previous enemy efforts in the region. Sarah's position came under immediate enemy attention as Taliban fighters attempted to neutralize the sniper threat that could disrupt their assault. Enemy rounds struck the sandbags around her hide site, while rocket-propelled grenades exploded nearby, filling the air with dust and debris that complicated her ability to acquire targets effectively. Despite the incoming fire and chaotic conditions, Sarah began engaging enemy targets with systematic precision. Her first shots eliminated Taliban commanders directing assault teams, creating confusion among enemy forces who suddenly found themselves without leadership. She continued firing at a steady pace, selecting targets that would maximize disruption of the enemy's coordinated attack. The engagement continued for over 4 hours, with Sarah maintaining effective fire throughout the battle despite constant enemy attempts to suppress or eliminate her position. She adapted to changing conditions by adjusting her shooting positions and techniques, never allowing enemy forces to predict her location or timing. During the most intense phase of the battle, Sarah observed a group of Taliban fighters preparing to breach Chapman's main gate using explosives and assault tactics. The breach would have allowed enemy forces direct access to the base interior, potentially resulting in catastrophic casualties among coalition forces and support personnel. Sarah engaged the breach team with rapid, accurate fire that eliminated the explosive specialists and scattered the assault force. Her intervention prevented the gate breach and forced Taliban forces to continue their costly frontal assault against prepared defensive positions. Coalition forces were able to maintain their defensive integrity and prevent enemy penetration of the base perimeter. As the battle progressed, Sarah's ammunition supply became critically low due to the sustained engagement and high volume of fire required to support the defense. She was forced to conserve rounds by selecting only the highest value targets while other soldiers attempted to resupply her position under enemy fire. The resupply effort required soldiers to expose themselves to enemy observation and fire while carrying heavy ammunition boxes across open ground. Several attempts failed when enemy machine gun fire forced the carriers to seek cover before reaching Sarah's position. The ammunition shortage threatened to eliminate her effectiveness during the most critical phase of the battle. Corporal Davies, Sarah's regular spotter, volunteered for a dangerous resupply mission that required crossing nearly 200 yards of ground under direct enemy observation. Davies successfully reached Sarah's position with enough ammunition to sustain her operations for several additional hours, potentially saving the defensive effort through his courage and initiative. With her ammunition supply restored, Sarah resumed effective engagement of enemy forces with renewed intensity. She systematically eliminated Taliban fighters who attempted to coordinate renewed assault efforts, maintaining pressure that prevented the enemy from organizing effective attacks against coalition positions. The tide of the battle began shifting in favor of coalition forces as Sarah's accurate fire eliminated key enemy leaders and disrupted their assault coordination. Taliban forces found themselves unable to maintain their offensive momentum without the leadership and organization necessary for complex operations against prepared defenses. Air support arrived in the form of attack helicopters and close air support aircraft that engaged enemy positions with machine guns, rockets, and precision-guided munitions. Sarah coordinated with the aircraft crews to identify high-value targets and adjust fire to maximize effectiveness while minimizing fratricidal incidents. The combination of Sarah's precision fire and aerial bombardment proved devastating to Taliban forces, who began withdrawing from their assault positions after suffering severe casualties. The withdrawal quickly became a rout as enemy forces abandoned heavy weapons and equipment in their haste to escape the killing zone. During the enemy withdrawal, Sarah continued engaging fleeing Taliban fighters to prevent their reorganization for renewed attacks. Her shots were carefully selected to eliminate leaders and weapons specialists who could pose continued threats to coalition forces in future operations. The battle ended after 6 hours of intense combat, with Taliban forces suffering catastrophic casualties and failing to achieve any of their operational objectives. Coalition casualties were remarkably light considering the scale and intensity of the enemy assault, primarily due to effective defensive preparations and superior individual soldier performance. Post-battle analysis revealed that Sarah had personally eliminated 43 confirmed enemy fighters during the engagement, including numerous leaders and specialists whose deaths had crippled Taliban assault capabilities. Her performance was unprecedented in recent military history, establishing new standards for individual soldier effectiveness in defensive operations. Colonel Harrison observed Sarah's performance throughout the battle from the Tactical Operations Center, watching through surveillance systems and receiving regular reports from field commanders. He witnessed her systematic destruction of enemy forces and her critical contributions to the defense's success, forcing him to confront his own prejudices and poor judgment. The charges against Sarah were immediately dropped following the battle, with Harrison personally acknowledging that her previous actions had been justified and her performance during the defense had been exceptional. The formal recognition came during a ceremony attended by senior officers from brigade and division headquarters. Sarah received the Silver Star for her actions during the defense of Chapman, recognizing her extraordinary heroism and professional competence under the most demanding combat conditions. The award ceremony was attended by soldiers from throughout the base, who viewed Sarah as a symbol of excellence and dedication to duty. The medal presentation was conducted by the division commander, a three-star general who had reviewed Sarah's combat record and been impressed by her consistent performance throughout the deployment. During his remarks, the general noted that Sarah's kill count during the single engagement exceeded the totals achieved by most soldiers during entire combat deployments. Colonel Harrison was required to present the medal to Sarah personally, creating an awkward moment that was observed by hundreds of soldiers. His congratulations were formal and brief, but his acknowledgement of her achievements was genuine and represented a significant change in his attitude toward her capabilities. The ceremony concluded with Sarah's promotion to sergeant, recognizing her leadership abilities and potential for continued service in challenging assignments. The promotion was accompanied by orders assigning her to an elite sniper unit, where her skills could be utilized more effectively. Following the ceremony, Harrison approached Sarah privately to apologize for his previous treatment and acknowledge that his prejudices had clouded his judgment. He admitted that she had proven herself to be an exceptional soldier whose gender was irrelevant to her military effectiveness. Sarah accepted Harrison's apology professionally, without bitterness or recrimination. She expressed her commitment to continued service and her hope that future female soldiers would be evaluated based on their performance rather than assumptions about their capabilities. News of Sarah's achievements spread throughout the military and eventually reached civilian media outlets interested in stories about women in combat. Sarah declined most interview requests, preferring to maintain her focus on military duties rather than becoming a symbol or spokesperson for gender integration issues. Her combat record became part of military training curricula used to educate future soldiers about effective tactics and techniques in combat operations. Sarah's methods and decision-making processes were studied and incorporated into instruction at various military schools and training centers. The successful defense of Chapman became a case study examined by military analysts and historians interested in defensive operations and individual soldier effectiveness. Sarah's role in the battle was recognized as a decisive factor that prevented a potentially catastrophic defeat for coalition forces. Sarah completed her deployment with additional decorations recognizing her continued exceptional performance in subsequent operations. Her final fitness report noted that she was among the most effective soldiers to serve in Afghanistan, regardless of gender or military specialty. Upon returning to the United States, Sarah was assigned to Fort Bragg as an instructor at the Army's Sniper School, where she would train future marksmen in the techniques and mindset required for effective combat operations. Her students would benefit from her extensive combat experience and proven methods. The controversy between Sarah and Colonel Harrison became a cautionary tale used in leadership development programs throughout the military. Harrison's initial prejudices and poor judgment were contrasted with Sarah's professionalism and performance, illustrating the importance of evaluating soldiers based on their abilities rather than demographic characteristics. Sarah's story inspired numerous young women to pursue military careers and convinced many male soldiers that gender integration in combat roles could be successful when properly implemented. Her achievements demonstrated that exceptional soldiers could excel regardless of the social and political controversies surrounding their service. Colonel Harrison completed his deployment with a mixed legacy, receiving recognition for his unit's overall success while acknowledging his personal failures in leadership and judgment. He used his remaining military service to advocate for fair evaluation of all soldiers based on their performance rather than stereotypes or assumptions. The lessons learned from Sarah's deployment influenced military policies regarding women in combat and helped establish standards for evaluating soldier performance that emphasized results over demographics. Her example became part of the institutional knowledge that would guide future integration efforts. Sarah's 43 confirmed kills during the defense of Chapman established her as one of the most lethal snipers in modern military history, a record that left Colonel Harrison and her critics speechless when confronted with undeniable evidence of her extraordinary capabilities and dedication to duty.